Doctors told him, "He's going to die in a few minutes, 100%, there's nothing we can do." But what happened next completely shattered modern science. A blind man from birth dies, and for the first time in his life, he starts to see. He describes colors that don't even exist in our world. He watches his own body from above. He meets his deceased relatives, and this isn't just one story. Oncologist Dr. Jeffrey Long, son of a Nobel Prize nominee and a man who had believed only in science his entire life, collected over 1,300 cases just like this. He set out to disprove life after death. Instead, he found 9 pieces of evidence that prove, with 99% certainty, that death is not the end. After this video, you will never fear dying the same way again. Never. Today I want to share with you one incredible story. A man who grew up in a family of scientists suddenly became a real hunter of near-death experiences and came to absolutely mind-blowing conclusions. Jeffrey Long has studied thousands of near-death experiences. His conclusions prove with 99% certainty that life after death exists. Today we're going to break down several key pieces of evidence he gathered throughout his entire career. I grew up among scientists. My father was a Nobel Prize nominee. It was my father and the rest of my family who instilled in me a true love for science. Thanks to that, I became a scientist myself. Someone who is used to examining every single fact with strict scientific methods. I also studied near-death experiences, and I managed to collect a whole series of facts that prove, with 99% certainty, that life after death is real, says oncologist and near-death experience researcher Dr. Jeffrey Long. Starting in 1998, Jeffrey Long examined around 1,300 of these cases. From them, he identified 9 pieces of evidence that all point to the same conclusion: eternal life exists. Sheila's doctor was completely stunned by her story. "I stopped believing a long time ago that death is the end of our existence, but it took me quite a while to truly understand that," admits Jeffrey Long. This journey began back in 1984, when Jeffrey Long stumbled across a heated debate between 2 scientists in a medical journal about what near-death experiences actually are. Cardiologist Dr. Michael Sabom had collected 107 accounts from patients who had out-of-body experiences after their hearts stopped. In the pages of that scientific journal, Dr. Sabom argued that the mind separating from the physical brain at the moment the heart stops is actually the soul. But scientist Richard Blacker harshly criticized Sabom's hypothesis, calling the patient's visions nothing more than a side effect of brain hypoxia. That debate made a powerful impression on Jeffrey Long. At the time, he couldn't afford to get distracted, so he tried to forget what he had read. But from that very day, stories about people leaving their bodies and entering another world started appearing everywhere he looked. In 1994, Jeffrey Long was invited to dinner by a friend. The friend introduced him to his wife. Her name was Sheila. When she learned I was a doctor, she began telling me about her health problems. The situation was so serious that during surgery, Sheila's heart stopped because of a reaction to the anesthesia. She nearly died that day. But Sheila spoke about what happened with such strange excitement that I decided to ask her for more details, Jeffrey Long recalled. When Sheila's heart stopped, she found herself in a place filled with light. According to her, it felt so incredibly good that she thought this was the place. When she regained consciousness, she gathered the courage to tell her doctor what she had seen. Her doctor was visibly shaken. He looked frightened. Since Sheila was in a Catholic hospital, they sent a nun to speak with her. Sheila told the nun everything that had happened. The nun listened carefully and then declared it was the work of the devil. It's easy to guess that after those words, she didn't really feel like telling anyone else about it. For me, that story became the real call to start my own research into near-death experiences, 9 proofs of eternal life from Jeffrey Long. Over 20 years of research, Jeffrey Long collected more than 1,300 cases of out-of-body experiences. He asked every person who had gone through this experience to answer 100 questions. In the end, Jeffrey Long received 9 solid proofs of eternal life. Let's take a closer look at some of them. The first proof the researcher points to is conscious death. What does that mean? From a scientific point of view, It is impossible to have clear, vivid impressions when a person is unconscious or in a state of clinical death, Long states. To understand how extraordinary it is to have conscious experiences in such moments, you need to know what actually happens. After the heart stops, the brain flatlines. The machine measuring brain activity shows a perfectly straight line, explains Dr. Jeffrey Long. The researcher says that in that state, conscious experiences simply cannot occur. Yet people continue to see visual images, hear everything happening around them, and report a dramatic sharpening of all their senses. Many of those interviewed said everything around them became far more vivid. One of Long's patients noted that compared to what he saw, the colors we're used to look pale and dirty. A woman who survived a heart attack said she saw colors that are impossible to describe in words. Another person reported seeing shimmering shades he had never encountered before. The people interviewed also talked about the silence they found themselves in. They described it like this: "It was incredibly quiet. I had never heard such peaceful silence before. There were no sounds at all. Absolute silence. It felt like I was underwater, where no one can make any noise." Many people said that during their experience, they gained the ability to see in 360 degrees. While answering the questions, they would say things like, "I could see in 3 dimensions at once. I felt like I had turned into a floating eye. I could see in every direction simultaneously." The second proof of eternal life, according to Dr. Jeffrey Long, is that during near-death experiences, people feel completely outside their physical body. Long gives the example of a doctor named Thaddeus who was lying on his back but saw himself from above. Or the story of a woman named Diana who flipped over on a raft in the water. She suddenly realized she was above the river, looking down at the overturned raft. The people interviewed could also see events happening far away from their bodies. Skeptics can test this themselves. Close your eyes for 5 minutes in a busy public place and try to be as aware as possible of everything happening around you. Have someone watch you. After 5 minutes, compare what you remember with what the observer saw. I can confidently say your impressions will contain far more inaccuracies than what people report during out-of-body experiences. Another proof of life after death that Long highlights is the life review. People told him that during their near-death experiences, they saw something like a movie made up of events from their own life. And it wasn't just watching. They actually felt what other people had felt toward them at those moments. Among the proofs of eternal life, Jeffrey Long also includes these. People who were blind from birth begin to see the moment they die. People from completely different countries report strikingly similar experiences. Interviewees often describe meeting deceased loved ones, and even children who are too young to invent stories from books or TV shows report exactly the same kind of experience. These convincing proofs leave me with no doubt whatsoever that eternal life exists. I believe this idea sounds incredibly inspiring for all of us and for our loved ones. For me personally, these proofs help me show more love to people and to look at life with greater courage and confidence, says Dr. Jeffrey Long.